Today on Locked On Canadians, we try to get a sense of perspective in all three of our segments. We're going to talk about Marty, we're going to talk about the division, and we're going to talk about the individual players up next.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day, and I also want to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. We love saying that, and it's all thanks to you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Ian Boisvert. And today we are going to try and bring some perspective because the Canadiens are inconsistent. Slumping, I think, is too strong a word, but they're inconsistent lately, and it has everyone bummed out. So we just really want to turn it back around before the holidays. We want to bring some positivity back. Ian, are you ready to do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so we're going to start talking about Marty and his decision making that, as a community, we might be questioning sometimes. Then we're going to take a look at how close the Atlantic Division is and try to sense where the Canadiens fall in there, and who has the best chance of separating themselves from the pack. Then finally, we're going to talk about the players and their individual development, and we'll talk about who should know better and who still has lots of room and potential to grow. All right, let's get started with Martin St. Louis. I just want to start by saying that Martin St. Louis doesn't always make the right decisions. He doesn't always make perfect decisions, but I'm still going to stand here and I'm going to say this man is a great coach for this team.
I think he's a great coach, period. I think he's the right coach for this team, right? Like, I think everybody on that team would do just about anything for this guy.
Yeah.
Which is what you need. You need your players to have a coach they want to play for. Look
to
across
buy in.
the league. Yeah, buy-in. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's you don't even have to look across the league. Look at this team over the last, 10, 15 years. Like Michel Therrien.
Mm-hmm.
Guys really want to play for Michel Therrien? No, he got a lot out of guys, but he runs he overstays his welcome very quickly.
The method has a shelf life.
Yeah, Dom Ducharme got a lot out of this team. They went to the Stanley Cup final. Probably didn't deserve to be there, but like that doesn't make a good coach,
right?
I find a lot of the ire towards Marty, and coaches in general. There's the expression, you show me a good coach, I'll show you a good goalie. Doesn't it kind of seem funny that like the first, whenever goaltending falters is when we all start to come for Marty?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's across the sport.
Yes.
A continuous thread that connects all of us.
Any team, any market. And a lot of the times, your Jack Adams nominees are always like, this coach got the best result with the worst team, right?
Yes.
And then you look at that, and goaltending is a massive portion, right? So yeah. I do also kind of want to address the Arbor Xhekaj and Jaden Struble thing. I don't think that Marty is playing favorites. I know there's a lot of sentiment, and he had to address it, at the end of last season. I think he had to address it this year's preseason too, is like, I don't hate Arbor, I love Arbor. I think that Marty is just looking at the team on a given night and thinking, which of these guys is giving me the best chance to win?
Yeah. And what's the even wilder accusation of Marty's favorite, and I'm going to be honest, just clowning and dunking on people who have this opinion, and I will continue to do so. In fact, the term Marty's favorite is sort of a dog whistle for me now, where I just don't have to listen to what you say, because I just don't think that there's any truth to it. But I on various Habs channels, I keep seeing people call Joe Veleno one of Marty's favorites, and I feel like we've entirely lost the plot. Like, that's a guy who didn't play a game until an entire forward line got hurt. Like, that guy is one of his favorites. That's one of the wildest things I've ever heard.
If anyone is Marty's favorite, it's Cole Caulfield, and like there's no competition.
And every Canadiens player will tell you that. They've done like those cheeky videos where they're like, "Oh, who's Marty's favorite?" And they're like, "It's Cole." Like, why are we asking this question?
To be fair,
Marty was one of Cole's favorite players. Marty was one of Cole's favorite players when he grew up. He was a small player who made a name for himself in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and is like really great and gifted and works really hard. But I also think like Cole Caulfield's personality, like if you ask a lot of people who's your favorite guy, a lot of them will choose Cole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. And all of this to say, like, this isn't me saying that Marty is infallible, right? He all of the coaches that I've watched coach this team is the only one I've ever heard admit that he makes a mistake.
Yeah.
Like I think if you listen to some of the post game or like not the post game because it's usually pretty emotional and raw, and he's still got that edge to him at that point, because I think in his brain he still thinks he's playing, which is great. It's what you want in a coach. It's what makes like Rod Brindamore so successful in Carolina.
Yeah.
But like he'll admit he makes mistakes. I think, for me, the big one is the lack of in-game adjustment. And we saw that firsthand against Philadelphia, where Philly was clogging up the neutral zone and they were shutting down the Canadiens' forecheck before it could get started. The dump-ins were essentially just turnovers. And they didn't really do anything to fix that until the third period, where it was just all systems go. We'll figure this out. We'd like to see more in-game adjustments, and maybe that's something that he needs to work on himself. And again, he hasn't been doing this all that long. But yeah, there are areas he can improve, just like, and we'll talk about this later. There are areas where every person associated with this franchise can improve.
Yes.
They're still not a perennial contender. They're not even a perennial playoff contender at this point, right? Like they're much further along than any of us would have thought.
Yeah. And I think like one thing that I do want to point out is that he's not a rookie coach anymore. Like this is his 4th season in the league, but this is still the first time he's doing this, right? And I think the big thing for me with Marty is that, like you said, he's able to admit to mistakes. And that's so important because he's also growing, right? And I just want to kind of temper all of our it is disappointing that the Canadiens aren't, winning more games. It is a bit disappointing that they had no answer against Philadelphia. I get that. I completely get that. But at the same time, like Marty's going to learn from this, and he's going to get better at this. And I think that one thing that I do want to point out is that he does know how to counter coach. I don't know if counter coaching is the right word, but to coach against a guy, right? Like we saw that in game 3 in the playoffs. Now, Spencer Carberry adjusted and they couldn't readjust, and that's something else, right? But he is able to be a tactician. It's just that he's not fully developed there yet. And I think that's totally fine. I think, if we're looking at this team and we say that we expected them to be Stanley Cup contenders before the season started, I think we would all be lying. I don't know a single person that thought that they would be Stanley Cup contenders. We were all excited, and I'm here to say that we should still be excited. There's still a lot to be excited about with this team. It's just that right now they're going through some adversity, and we're going to see how they come out of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned Marty's not a rookie. Far from it. I believe, if this list is to be believed, he's the 4th highest tenured NHL head coach.
Yeah.
He's just been around the longest because he coached the Canadiens through this rebuild where there were no expectations for him to win, right?
Yeah.
The expectation was, we want you to build a team, build a culture, build an expectation that eventually losing is not going to be something we tolerate. We're kind of there now.
Yeah.
Right? Like this team, yes, this team is going to lose games. Every team in this league is going to lose games. But we are not at a point where the Canadiens are searching for moral victories after every game.
No.
Like I thought after the Philly game, Marty said, he thought they were unlucky and that they played better than the numbers would have indicated. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it at least shows that that's the mentality that he's in. Right.
Yeah.
He's looking at this through the lens of the result is what matters here ultimately, but I did like our effort,
Yeah.
I to those who I think, are tired of the Marty experience, first of all, you better get used to it. He's not going anywhere. I also would posit, who are you replacing him with?
Exactly.
This has always been the argument for you and I on this show, Laura, right? When people want to get rid of Mike Matheson, who are you replacing him with? Right? You want to get rid of this guy. You want to get rid of Marty. Who is the next best available French Canadian coach who could coach this team? Because that is a requirement. Don't want to hear
French
about
speaking at the very least.
speaking.
But those don't exist either.
No. And everyone's going to go, Gerard Gallant. He doesn't speak French. He was an assistant coach here because he didn't speak French. That's not going to be an option.
He has a French name.
Yeah.
We can't
So did
fault
René
that.
Bourque, man. Like that doesn't mean anything. I have a French name. My last name is Boisvert. It's French. You hear a lick of French out of me? No.
And you are actually French Canadian. Like those are your
Right.
roots.
Right. So I always want to challenge people that if you're so willing to just bail on this coach and get a new one and just figure that out, who is it? And at the end of that selection, do the Canadiens players want to play for that guy more than Marty? The answer is going to be no.
Yes.
There's not a guy available in this league or under contract in this league who these guys want to play for more than Marty St. Louis. I believe that totally.
And we are going to revisit the Marty thing a little bit more in the third segment, just because there's a couple of things that relate to the players. But first up, we want to talk about the Atlantic Division and which of these teams has the best chance of separating themselves from the pack. And we'll get into that in just a second here. First, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time, getting closer to the action. Because with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up, and you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. And that's honestly what I like to do on NFL Sundays because it makes me feel like I'm part of the action. I'm getting closer to the game. And there's not that many weeks left, so get in on it now. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, so I was looking at the division standings this morning, as you do, right? After a game, you kind of look at like, oh, how much did that hurt the Montreal Canadiens? And I was sort of shocked and not that shocked that after, like, let's say between 30 and 35 games, the Atlantic Division is so close that less than 10 points separates the first in the division and the last in the division. Unsurprisingly, Buffalo is last. I think that's not shocking anybody. But surprisingly, Detroit, Boston, and Tampa Bay are jostling for first, and Montreal has so far just been failing to grasp that top spot every single time. Every time they have a chance to get in first, they have it. But I was also like thinking about these teams overall, right? Detroit looks really good right now. Toronto's struggling, but they still have some talent. They're still pretty loaded in the talent front, right? They're front loaded, but still. When you're looking at these teams, Ian, which of these teams do you think can run away and separate themselves from the pack?
I really think it's Tampa still. Until they are completely out of the equation, Tampa is the team that I will put above everyone. I think while Toronto, I think, can still be a playoff team, I think they've played themselves out of that sort of winning the division category.
Yeah.
That is to say, like, Montreal could be there at the end and it wins prize. Remember, they're treading water right now with an entire forward line and one of their top 4 defensemen on the shelf.
Yes.
I think that's I look at a lot of the analytics people like Mika Blake McCurdy, and Money Puck has it as well, like the playoff predictor. And it's like Montreal's hovering around like 40% or something like that. And I think we're looking at that through the understanding that like they don't have as many guys as they thought they would have right now. And the goaltending's been bad, and they're hoping they pull themselves out of it. But I think it's Tampa for me. The one team I am completely fascinated by in the Atlantic Division is the Boston Bruins. I don't get this. We clowned on them all summer. What are they doing? You're supposed to make me believe that a guy named Morgan Geekie is second in the league in goals? Shut up. That doesn't make any sense.
Sounds
He has
fake, but
24
okay.
goals. It's not even Christmas. That's not real. That's why I look at them and I go, you shouldn't be here. And then I look at how they're getting here. I'm like, you definitely shouldn't be here. That's not to say that like they've been playing bad and they just suddenly are still. I just don't believe that a guy named Morgan Geekie is going to be a guy who could win a rocket. That doesn't make any sense. So they're the team that's the biggest surprise to me. Detroit is one that's like they've always kind of hung around, and I think they're finally starting to see that rebuild through.
Mhm.
But I'm less. I guess I'm more like surprised in the other direction, like that Ottawa has not figured it out.
Yet.
That Linus Ullmark has not figured it out yet. That they got Brady Tkachuk back and still lost a bunch of games, and like they beat Winnipeg on Monday night. They tied the game late and won it in overtime. So like I think all of this to say, I think this division's still a jump ball.
Mhm.
Do you get that feeling too? Like that this isn't decided yet?
It's not close, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation because I looked at the other divisions and they're not as close. Most of them have like at least one team that's like, oh, like, I don't want to be in Colorado's division. There are some
No, the Central's a
surprises.
gauntlet. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. They like and so like I'm looking at it and there's some surprises too. Like the Sharks are better than I thought they would be. The Pittsburgh Penguins, I know they're right now they're suffering, but spiraling. But like there are some surprises, but I don't think that any division is as close as this when it comes to trying to predict what happens come March or April, right? And again, I know that everybody's dealing with injuries, everybody has to deal with injuries. I think Toronto's relatively healthy though.
They're
And
getting there. The goaltending, the guys that are hurt for Toronto, and this is a term that Canadiens fans probably know of, and especially because he's on the bench now. They have a bunch of guys on Robida Island right now.
yeah.
Anthony Stolarz, they won't tell anybody what's wrong with him. He's going to see another doctor.
Has anyone
Brandon
seen him?
Carlo, what's that?
Has anyone seen Anthony Stolarz?
I don't know. I haven't. Brandon Carlo, big acquisition last year, kind of has disappeared. Like they're just kind of sending, as Scott likes to say, sending dudes to the shadow realm and just not understanding. Like, so they are relatively healthy. Matthews for me in Toronto is like the big thing because he's just been good. If Austin Matthews is just good,
You're in
that team
trouble.
is cooked. Like
Yeah.
he needs to be in the Rocket conversation for that team to have any kind of playoff, long playoff run aspirations.
Mhm.
And he's just fine.
Yeah. And so, like, I do think that for the Montreal Canadiens, they have their work cut out for them. But before we end this segment, I do want to ask you, like, I'm looking at this right now. After they haven't, none of the teams have played 35 games yet. I'm looking at this, and I look at Montreal, and I think about Kaden Guhle coming back, Kirby Dach coming back, and then finally, hopefully, Alex Newhook coming back. And I still like Montreal's chances.
Yeah, me too. I do. And again, I think we often gloss over him when we talk about the injuries, but Patty Laine.
Yeah.
Like when he came back last year and jumped on the power play, he was a spark plug.
He was a difference. I think we counted the goals, the goal differential. He was a difference maker.
And one of the first questions Kent Hughes got after the season ended last year in his postseason, postmortem was about Laine and how, he struggled down the stretch and all this stuff and whatever. And the first thing Kent Hughes said was the Montreal Canadiens don't make the playoffs without Patrick Laine.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely true.
100%.
That was true for a lot of players. Like no Lane Hutson, they don't have a sniff at the playoffs, but it was true. Like that, he was an important piece of that team. And I'm still wondering, if and when he's able to come back, what role does he have? Is he a forward Marc-Andre Bergeron where he's the power play specialist? If they want to trade him in like a salary retention trade where a team trades him again soon afterwards, they have to do it by this week because the salary retention double deadline is in the middle of the holiday roster freeze. So they have to make that trade by the holiday roster freeze. And if they don't, then another team at the deadline can't retain on him a second time.
Yeah.
So something to consider in all of this. I don't know that there's really an appetite across the league to take that on, but all this to say, like, that's a player that could be a difference maker when it comes down to which team wins this division. If Line can come back and be healthy and chip in power play goals or chip in any 5-on-5 offense, they're in a much better spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes without saying, obviously, that the goaltending is a big X factor in this equation. All right. Up next, I do want to talk about the players, and sometimes we get frustrated and think, this guy should know better, et cetera, et cetera. And I really want to put some perspective. Again, we talk about how this team is so young. Let's talk about what that actually means. Up next, you're on Locked On Canadiens. This episode is also brought to you by Monarch. The holidays are amazing, but they can also get overwhelming fast. Travel, gifts, parties, year-end expenses. It's really easy to lose track of your money this time of year. And that's exactly why Monarch has become such a game changer for me. If you want to keep your finances under control this holiday season, you need to be using Monarch. Rated Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, simple dashboard. The holiday spending category can become a lifesaver. You can see exactly what's left in your gift and travel budget in real time. And in minutes, you can check your net worth, link all your accounts, and keep track of contributions before the deadlines. Monarch makes money check-ins simple. Just a minute or two each week, and you're completely up to speed. And it's great for couples. Shared dashboards, shared goals, and fewer "wait, how much did we spend" conversations. Truly a game changer. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Thank you for making Locked On Canadiens your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Canadiens with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right. Let's talk about, actually, before we talk about the players, I just want to really quickly give people a primer on our holiday schedule. So we will both be away. And so we will have our weekly recap and forecast as the Tuesday episode. And then we will have a special Boxing Day episode. And we're going to try our best to recap the Bruins game in real time. But if we don't do that, we're going to do it for the weekly recap the following week. It is the holidays. We are trying to, navigate all our schedules. So you'll definitely get at least a weekly recap, weekly forecast episode, and a special episode on Boxing Day. And we'll hopefully be able to drop a Bruins recap on the 24th. Just wanted to let everybody know so you're not wondering where the podcast is. And we hope you're also getting some time with your family and friends. Also, don't forget the mailbag. It's tomorrow. Stay tuned till the end for where to submit your questions. Let's talk about which players are fully formed. I wanted to talk about this because sometimes we're getting frustrated with certain players. And I think a lot of the time we kind of need to step back and realize that some of these guys are going to get so much better. Yeah. And they're going to get so much more experienced. And an example that I want to point out is Ian pointed this out, and I cannot remember now who it was. I think it was Ristolainen, right? Getting hit and falling down. Making a hit and then having somebody show up and get in your face and then falling down, flopping, right? And that's a veteran move. That is a move you pull after having a lot of experience, falling for it yourself and being victimized by it yourself, right? So I'm looking at stuff like that. And Demidov was unfortunately the victim of that one. And a couple of years from now, he's going to learn to do the same thing. Now, I know his prime job is not laying out massive hits, but I still think that, I look at the players themselves and I look at how much further they have to go in terms of maturity and just how much better their game is going to get because of experience. And I find myself having a lot of trouble getting too frustrated with most of the players on this team. But if you were to ask me, at this point, who should know better, I've got a list. Do you want to hear my list?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go through that, and we'll talk about the dudes who we can finger wag at. Yeah, it's sort of like, I think of the Gordon Ramsay meme where it's like when he's on like Kids Master Chef and like they make a mistake, he's like, oh, little child, pat on the head. And then like someone overcooks a risotto on an adult version of the show and he's berating them. Like that's sort of
So what is this, an idiot sandwich?
yeah, an idiot sandwich. That's and who are the people who would be idiot sandwiches on the Canadiens?
Okay, I think like number one, we have to talk about the veterans.
Yeah.
And the veterans on this team are Josh Anderson, Brendan Gallagher, Mike Matheson, right? And I would still put. Am I missing any old guys?
I mean, would you count Alex Carrier? Maybe.
Kind of. Yeah.
Would you count Noah Dobson? Not really.
Not that much because he has a lot of games under his belt, but he's still really young.
Yeah.
I would say that there's like a middle tier where it's like a guy like Noah Dobson, a guy like Cole Caulfield, a guy like Nick Suzuki. Like I wouldn't consider them veterans, but I would consider them in their prime.
Sure.
And so they really do need to know better, right? But then there's all these other guys that like
right. There's a lot of stuff that like I've definitely keyed in on this a lot this year, which is Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson just having full-blown meltdowns because officiating didn't go their way.
Yeah.
And which is something like you'd expect from maybe a Demidov. You'd expect from a Lane Hutson. You'd expect maybe a little from a Cole Caulfield.
Yeah.
But like these guys doing it all the time is not cute. Like I really don't like it. I know Gallagher kind of had one against Philadelphia. It was, if you want to say it's for good reason, and it didn't cause another penalty. He was just irate with the fact that that Sealer took his stick and put it in his own face and drew a penalty. Whatever. But yeah, I think like those guys are peak guys who should know better.
And they're guys who should be doing things like that in return, as opposed to having meltdowns.
Yeah. Like Mike Matheson was really the only guy who was ever treated that way by a lot of this fan base. Last year, like he was the only one who could make any kind of mistake.
Yeah.
And now this year he's balling out, and like that ire has shifted to Joe Veleno, has shifted to not so much Jaden Struble, which I find odd because I think he makes a lot of mistakes that kind of we all just go, whatever. Because again, he's a guy who maybe shouldn't know better. He hasn't played all that much.
Yeah.
Alex Carrier has taken a lot of the ire that Mike Matheson was getting for some good and bad reasons.
I think with Alex Carrier, I don't want to get too carried away into a side quest right now. But Alex Carrier, like I think part of it is that a lot of teams have figured out how to neutralize him. And that is like literally slam him into the board 700 times a game. Yeah,
he's going to invite contact. If you put him into the wall, that's a pretty good way of shutting him down. He's good at getting out of it, but he can't do it every time. It's it's a law of averages here.
It's just people have figured him out, right? So like again, he's old enough to come up with new moves or a way to get around that. All right, so like let's talk about like who doesn't know better, because I think one of the problems we always have is that like we hear about Marty hating Arbor, but I think Arbor is still in a position to like learn how to do it better.
Yeah, Arbor's kind of getting to the cusp of that. I mean, what's this? His third full NHL season? Like he's getting to the cusp of like should start to know better.
He's figuring it out, and he's getting better. Like I've seen a couple of really great games from him in recent weeks.
Yeah, I think Arbor Xhekaj has substantially raised his floor, which is a thing Marty talks about, right? Like we don't, your ceiling. We'll talk about that at a later date. Right now, to be an NHLer, your floor has to be higher.
Yeah,
and I think Arbor has done a terrific job at raising his floor over the last couple months. When you look at it, the thing that's always going to keep him around is the, pardon the pun, but the X factor with him, which is that he can be that enforcer that a lot of teams don't have. That's always been the thing. I like to think that maybe one day he becomes a Radko Gudas. And I know people like shudder at that because he was kind of a, he cheap shot artist, whatever. But Radko Gudas, when he was in his prime, was that sort of enforcer, but was also like an analytics darling.
Yeah.
Like he was one of the better defensemen from a puck possession standpoint.
Yeah.
Like if Arbor could one day figure out how to be that guy, the Canadiens are laughing.
Yeah. Just like more legal and less illegal, right?
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let me talk about some players we haven't mentioned yet. We haven't really talked too much about Lane Hutson. Does display maturity far beyond his years. Still not fully formed though. Juraj Slafkovsky. I think Juraj Slafkovsky has not yet understood his own power fully, but he's getting there.
He's he's starting to realize it. And I think that this is the process of becoming that is super exciting when you're a fan of a team with a player like this, where like you're starting to see him pull it together, and other fans of other teams are starting to get a little nervous when your Slafkovsky is on the ice.
Yeah.
He's figuring it out. I really am excited to think about what he looks like a year from today. You know, through the rigors of the rest of the season, maybe another playoff run next December. Like, is he a point per game kind of player?
Yeah.
Like, I'm really excited at that kind of arc for him.
Just like beheading people all over the place.
Yeah, murder toddler.
A murder toddler. We talked about Noah Dobson. Oliver Kapanen. I like this one because he's kind of like an old soul, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he has the sort of benefit that a lot of younger players don't have, which is that he played a ton of pro hockey.
Yeah.
Just last year alone, he played for like 4 different teams. You know, like he played for Montreal, he played for Laval, he played over in Sweden. He played playoff games for both was it Timrå in Finland. Like he played for their in their playoffs. He was one of their best players. He played for Montreal in their playoffs. He played for Laval in their playoffs. He played in 3 different playoff runs in 1 year. Like that ages a guy in a really good way if you're trying to become an everyday NHLer.
I feel like that's kind of like ideal, right? Like being able to play those situations so much. All right, let's move on real quick. Zachary Bolduc, we did spend some time yesterday talking about this. He's going to get there, but he's like really far from it right now.
Yeah, the challenge with him right now is that he's not there, and he's being put into a position where he needs to be there.
Yes.
That's why I don't love him on that top line. It's not that I don't love the player. I don't love this current version of him in that role. It doesn't make a ton of sense. It is very Josh Anderson reminiscent to me.
We didn't talk about Jake Evans, but I put him in that Alex Carrier, Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki kind of group there.
Yep.
Joe Valeno. Joe Valeno. I don't know if he's going to be consequential. Alex Texier.
Yeah. I mean, that's a guy with a lot of pro hockey, not a crazy amount, but enough to know better, right? We're talking about which players need to know better. He does, and he uses that experience to make really subtle plays all around the ice. I think Marty was saying that he just knows what the right thing to do is in a lot of different situations. That to me is what we get to when a player is fully formed, knowing what the right play is and being able to execute on it on a regular basis. That's what separates these sort of younger players from these veterans who can make careers for themselves.
And then the other guys left are just the rookies, Jared Davidson, Joshua Roy, Florian Xhekaj, Owen Beck, Adam Engstrom. Like, I don't think it's fair to like bring them into this, not to bring them. I think they're not on the scale yet.
Yeah.
I put it that way. So then we are left with 2 goaltenders, Jakub Dobeš and Sam Montembeault.
Goaltending isn't a matter of knowing better or not. Goaltending to me is a feel thing. And when Jakub Dobeš is on and he's feeling it, you can see it. You can see it with your eyes. Same thing with Sam Montembeault. It looks different, right? When Sam Montembeault is feeling it, it's kind of boring, right? Because he's in position. He's making the right stops. When Dobeš is feeling it, he's flying all around, making spectacular saves, look spectacular. So it's more of a feel thing for me with those guys. It's like there's only so much experience as an NHL goaltender that I think, you're able to draw from. It's really a feel thing. That's why they felt okay putting Fowler in for these couple of games. It's not that don't worry, guys, I know what I'm doing. It's quite the opposite. He's out there just trying it.
Yeah. And learning. I need to talk about the turnover again, and he's learning.
Don't dwell on it.
Fine.
You'll be all right.
Everybody does it. All right. It is time to hit our trivia and then move on because tomorrow is our mailbag. And hopefully a recap of a win against Chicago.
Yeah. All right. Yesterday's mailbag question. This current Habs scout played for the Montreal Canadiens and all of this week's opponents, the Flyers, Blackhawks, and Penguins, and this laundry list of teams: the Minnesota North Stars, the New Jersey Devils, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the St. Louis Blues, and the Nashville Predators. Who is this guy, Laura?
Talk about a journeyman. It's Reed Simpson.
I'm
most proud of this question because we came up with it together.
Yes, we did. This was a true joint effort in the trivia. We actually were stumbling to come up with the one about Paul Coffey earlier in the week, and we also found this one. So we banked an extra day of trivia, which was really above bar for us. We're usually not able to pull that off. Unfortunately, we stumped everybody. Nobody had the right answer to this one, so it was Reed Simpson. Today's question: We just talked about Juraj Slafkovsky. Juraj Slafkovsky is currently 25th all-time in NHL scoring by a Slovakian-born player. Which two former Habs are ahead of him on this list? So two former Montreal Canadiens are ahead of Juraj Slafkovsky on the all-time Slovakian NHL scoring race. If you have the answer, put it in the comments below this video. Let us know any way you know how, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show.
I'm excited to guess this as soon as we stop recording. I've got a couple of guesses in mind. All right. Thank you all for tuning in today to Locked On Canadiens. Tomorrow we will have our Friday mailbag, so make sure you tune into that. Make sure you're subscribed to and follow us, Locked On Canadiens, everywhere you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, so you get all of the latest episodes. On social media, you can find us at Locked On Canadiens on TikTok, on Instagram, and on Blue Sky. And we're also lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. So please send us mailbag questions. You can also leave them in the YouTube comments. It is Friday. We do want your mailbag questions, and anything we don't get, we might have it for our holiday show. And if you need a last-minute holiday gift or someone keeps asking you what you want, make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com. And for those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure that your second listen is NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. Thank you so much for listening. And at least one of us, possibly both of us, will be back tomorrow.